All right, let's do this. This is it. This is episode, take a guess, Jackie. What episode number is this, Jackie Kashian, my guess?
I'm going to say this is episode 212.
Well, nope.
4 years?
More than that. And the last one you were on
was
284.
Oh, then we're close to like 400 at this point, huh?
We're at 320.
320.
We're at 320, my friends. Welcome to episode 320 of the podcast. Here we are in December, less than a week before Christmas.
2018.
2018.
This year could fuck itself. Knock yourself out. End already. It's
better or worse than 2017?
Probably better for me. Yeah, I think, life just... We're living in the end times, right? So as we get closer, it's so weird. I don't know. So I was still in shock for most of 2017. So 2018 has been me just trying to process and being willing to process every fresh new reveal of hell of American misbehavior.
Is that what you tell yourself each morning? I'm willing to process.
I'm willing to, sometimes I only say I'm willing to be willing. I'm willing to be willing to learn.
That's like the Bart Simpson thing. I can't promise I'll try. I'll try to try.
Oh, there you go. That's it exactly. That is exactement. So here we are, though. I'm doing the stand-up. Yeah. This is, we accidentally booked me twice this year. And, and I...
February to December.
Right. I asked for this, and I was granted it. And then I realized that I had been, and I was like, oh... Am I taking bread off the table of some, Ebenezer Scrooge?
Like, whose rule are you breaking here?
Exactly. Well, when it's that's the thing about comedy and comics, and it turns out comedy bookers and comedy club owners is you tell them a rule, they genuinely want to break it.
Right.
And there is a stubbornness that you could say is a comic trait, or you could say it's a human trait.
Sure.
Because nobody likes to be bossed.
Right.
And so as soon as you tell somebody what to do.
So now we're here. Now we're a few days into it. February to December. Good decision?
Good decision. I'm because here's the scoop. So 2 years ago in this very month, I recorded my new album, my current album.
Yeah.
And it was 2 years ago. So for the last 2 years, I have been essentially living off the teat of that album and doing those jokes, but phasing them out and working on the new album, essentially working on the next hour. And so what I've been doing for the last 3 weeks, I've been on the road pretty hard the last 3 weeks doing headline sets.
Yeah.
Because most of this year have been short sets, opening for Maria Bamford and Brian Regan. So I've had headline sets during the year, but this is a block where I get, 20 or 30. It'll be 15, 20. It'll be 20 sets, hour-long sets that I can work on putting the new hour into something real.
Okay.
Because it's a learned task, obviously, and you gotta get the order right. You gotta get the punchlines tighter. You're always writing to try to make the joke better, but you also have to find what the arc is.
Yeah.
And so, that's what this week and last week and the week before and the week next week is all about.
When you first get back into a club, do the headline set, does it take a day or two to get back into it?
It can, yeah. It's like I did Salt Lake City. So they saw me meandering around trying to figure out, because when you write a 20-minute set list or a 30-minute set list, it's the arc is different and the timing's slightly different.
Right. For
me anyway, if I'm doing a 20-minute set, I tend to talk a lot faster because I want to try to get 40 minutes worth of material into it.
You purposely talk faster.
I was like, I got a lot of jokes to tell. You guys have the rest of your lives to get them. You're gonna, and plus, I'm all warm up, right? So get people's minds what you want to do is you want to get their bodies faced to the correct direction when you open. You want to also get their minds moving,
Yeah.
you know? And
Okay.
so I remember when I used to feature just on the road, I would do my set, the first show, and then I'd watch the headliner so that I could figure out what I was doing, right? Like if the headliner was dirty, I would try to close on some dirtier stuff so they'd be prepped for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and if
Okay.
they were squeaky clean, I wouldn't do that. Or if they were
Unless you hate them, then you fuck them over.
right, which I never did. There were comics I didn't like, but there are you laugh, but there are features out there who
Sabotage? Is that what that's called?
they want to bury the headliner, bury him, follow that,
Yeah.
and you're like, you're exhausting. What you know that there's some paying customers who would like to see a whole show.
Yeah, right.
And,
yeah.
and I'm the kind of person that's like, well, I'm at work, do the job.
Yeah.
And I am not headlining, so I'm going to do the best job possible, and hopefully be raised up to headliner by everyone seeing that I'm good at what I do. So, which isn't always how it's done. Sometimes you get raised to headliner by blowing away the headliner.
Sure.
And
Did I see that? Did you stop in here in the last couple months with Regan?
yeah, because Regan was doing a theater. We stayed at a very nice boutique, like Ritz-Carlton kind of hotel here in Minneapolis. Very fancy. I just drove by some chilling giant black office building
Oh. Okay.
over on Washington, right by sort of where Seven Corners is. Mm-hmm. And Four Corners. What is it? It's the one by the Southern Theater and that Holiday Inn.
Yeah. Holiday Inn used to be Grandma's down there.
Yeah, but it used to be Grandma's. And then so as you coming from downtown into that corner,
Yeah.
on the left, there's this sort of weird, enormously chilling looking Wrinkle in Time kind of government-y looking building. It looks like 2x2 Hands of Blue coming out of that building is
no.
what it looks like.
Oh, no.
I go, what is it?
I don't know.
Oh, God.
I don't know.
It was terrifying. I was at a stoplight long enough to take a picture of it, and I was like, this is a disturbing building.
How you lived in Minneapolis?
Yeah, 90 to 96, I believe.
1996. What neighborhood did you live in?
I lived over off of Franklin and Riverside.
Okay.
It was Seward, I think
Yeah.
it's called. Yeah.
You ever go by and check out the old neighborhood?
I just did because a friend of mine lent me her car today. I've been taking Lyfts. New thing with Lyft, by the way. There's an app called Ebates, like rebates.
Yeah.
But Ebates.
I'm familiar.
Are you?
I am.
Do you
Not
have
with
it?
the Lyft thing, but I'm familiar with Ebates, yeah.
Okay. Do you
I'm a
have
big
it?
couponer. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So for every Lyft drive, if you go to Lyft through Ebates, you get $1.
$1. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a percentage, but it's $1.
Okay.
And I take Lyft fairly often.
Yeah.
So might as well.
You never know where you're going to get a deal. Here's one. This is no connection. There's no sponsors to this website. I recently bought glasses through one of these online sites. I don't
Okay.
have to give them a free plug or whatever. But I went through another one of those discount websites before buying them. Got 15% back.
50% back.
Yeah, cash back.
Cash back from, and so you guys, Ebates. Did you ever see Idiocracy?
Yes.
It's like, fuck off, I'm e-baiting, which is not how that line went. Anyway, I did enjoy that movie.
Hey,
I've never been able to watch it again though because it's becoming true so fast. I'm like,
No shit,
all right,
right?
Mike Judge, I can't Gatorade because it's what a body needs. Anyway, go.
I wanted to, since we were just chatting about this, this is an article. I want to read a bit of it to you and get your comments on. It's about you. It's from
What?
this from a few months ago.
Okay.
Some Canadian website talking about you and Maria doing a show.
There's nothing that journalists don't. Nobody ever asked me what it's like to work with Brian. Everyone's like, "You work with Maria Bamford."
Oh yeah, yeah.
Anyway, what's
Brian,
it say?
who? No. This one, it's not necessarily, it's just someone's, they watch you perform. It says, Bamford's dear friend Jackie Kashian opened the evening with close to a half hour of amazingly outspoken material. I like this. It was notably long for a warm-up set, but never felt like it. As Kashian, a scene stealer, lamented what older white people have done to ruin America and the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder where where the joke was in that point, because I'm working on being a bit about being a middle-aged white lady.
Oh yeah, they actually put in quotation or parentheses, I should say. She's an ambivalent member of this group.
Oh, fair enough.
It says Kashian spoke freely about how dumb people can be with their poor choices and impulsive decisions, born of dull instincts and obliviousness to civility and even basic cartography, which I had to look up because I don't know that word.
Map making?
Yeah, map making. Oh, I don't know. Why didn't I know that? I didn't know cartography.
What the hell is this?
I don't know.
That doesn't have anything to do with. I mean, it seems. You know what it feels like? It feels like that's a paper that somebody wrote and should be on my desk on Monday. 1,200 words. Hopefully they. I'm like, I don't know what to. That doesn't sound. I mean, it sounds sort of like my act, but
there's more. There's more, Jackie.
What?
She even lampooned romance and sexuality, using herself as a prime example of how relationships can and can't function. It was all very clever. It was all very clever, with subtle calls to arms about range.
I'm so glad you changed the inflection there, because it sounded like the next words were going to be, but.
No,
No, it wasn't. She keeps going.
Yeah.
Is this a woman or whatever, whoever the journalist is?
I think it was a woman. With subtle calls to arms about a range of social and political issues. Chin up, millennials, you're fine. And Kashian certainly riled up the crowd for Bamford.
I certainly did.
Yeah.
It's funny. I had 2 interviews last week in Indiana, because I did Bloomington, Indiana.
Yeah.
And I had 2 interviews. The 2 different papers. They were both phone interviews. They asked me almost exactly the same questions, because that's what people do. They ask the same questions.
Yeah.
And but what I thought was fascinating is what they did with the information. 2 very different interviews came from those 2 interviews.
Oh.
And they did a sort of a back and forth kind of thing. And so one was a guy and one was a gal.
Uh-huh.
One was a man, one was a woman. There we go. Everyone's an adult. So the woman, so they both wanted to talk about Me Too. They wanted to talk about sexism. We're all very exhausted, except for that it is kind of exciting to talk about sexism, because women have always thought they were nuts. Anyway, it's sort of like black people getting to talk about racism, because they're exhausted, but they're also like, oh, I wasn't insane.
Right.
I shouldn't be questioned every time I have a barbecue. Okay. Oh, good for me.
Right.
And so, so we talked about that, and they were asking me about I have 2 podcasts, right? I have the Dork Forest, where I interview people about what they love.
Yep.
And then I have the Jackie and Laurie show, where Laurie Kilmartin and I celebrate and revile stand-up comedy. And we bitch about it, and we also celebrate it. And so they were the Jackie and Laurie show. We were talking one time about how many women headliners are at different clubs.
Yeah.
And they both asked me about this, and I said that on the average, it's 6 women headliners a year in every club. 50 weeks, 6 women headliners. It's not great. But comparably, and even somewhat worse, is the people of color and gay representation. 9. So men that are black, brown, Asian, or gay split 9 spots a year. And women split 6. So if you get a black gay woman, one of those 9 spots is gone as well. Anyway, so, but the we're all just a bunch of poor bastards. But so this woman, they both asked me about it. And I told them both that story, right? The woman then took it upon herself to look into the local club's calendar.
Okay.
And talk to, she didn't talk to the club, but she looked it up. And Bloomington's Jared is notorious for being just real fiddly, like he's hands-on, and he's a little twitchy, but he's super supportive of stand-up comedy, notoriously so, like to the point where like people will call up and say, well, is she funny? And he will literally say to the person on the phone, why would I book someone who I didn't think was funny?
Yeah.
What are you, nuts?
Yeah.
And we'll berate them and say, don't come. And you're like, what? And so he's had the club for 10 years, and it's very successful.
Yeah.
And it's actually, comics appreciate his club because he polices the room. He's like, if anybody is talking, swoop.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you can be kicked out. You have to shut up. You're
That's
at a
good.
theater event. And so it's great. But his club had 16 women comics.
Oh.
Yeah. Which is...
that stands out.
Yeah, that stands out, right? Mm-hmm. And I was... so she looked it up and then publish that.
Yeah.
The guy we were talking about, and I mentioned the thing about being crazy and being relieved to not be crazy, and he laughed, and he thought it was like, that is interesting, right? Because you don't know. None of us have the perspective of the other person. It takes effort.
It's been coming up a lot recently on this podcast.
I'm sure it has.
Yeah,
and
of course,
so,
right?
because we're all exhaustedly talking about the same fucking things. Because those are the I mean, and it's kind of hilarious because for 100 years we never talked about it at all. It was like it was all bitches and they go to the bathroom together. What's that all about? And it's just like, I don't know. So anyway, so he didn't mention it at all, but he mentioned other things in the interview that she didn't mention.
Oh.
So it was just a weird perspective where I gave almost exactly the same answers.
Yeah.
And they came up with two different complete articles. And both of them, I believe, asked me about Maria, and they both might have mentioned her. Because people, I mean, you gotta love Maria. And whatever I was doing this thing with Audible, and I was writing a spec, a pitch essentially for a romance novel that was going to be funny.
Oh yeah.
And Maria offered to be the voice of it. And which is kind of a cool get because she does a lot of voiceover work and she's TV show and she's famous, right?
Yeah.
And so I told them that, and they were very funny about it because they said, "Oh, that'd be amazing, but you should know it'd still be your project. It wouldn't be her project." And I was like, "I would always want to work with Maria Bamford. The reason I feature for Maria Bamford is because I think she's amazing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't feature for somebody if I didn't like their comedy
right.
at this late date in my life. Are you kidding me? As I slide into my twilight years, Nick DiPaolo asked me to open for him. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
He's
a great example of that. Yeah.
Well, because he's not for me.
Right.
And his audience might eat me alive.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to play whack-a-mole for 20 minutes. I don't want to.
No.
But Brian Regan's amazing.
Yeah.
And his audiences are often peppered with 9-year-olds, which I also have a lot in common.
Are there really?
Mm-hmm. People bring their kids.
I guess I've heard that before.
Yeah, people bring their kids because of the kind of stuff he writes, he just doesn't happen to write about sex or bodily functions.
Yeah.
So they think that it's child appropriate. And it's not child appropriate, but I'll tell you something. It's still an adult sport. Like he is an adult man.
That's a good way to put that.
So he has adult topics that he talks about, but they're mostly socio-political, right? Mm-hmm, and so the kids are like, is he going to wiggle? And so he wiggles. And it's all right. But his new stuff is awesome as well. And funny that article you read because he always, whenever I work with him, and I'll probably only work with him 2 to 4 times a year, he usually has 5 new minutes on courtesy. He is obsessed with people being nice to one another and just taking a tiny bit of effort to say thank you. That's his current one.
Oh,
and
I'm with you.
Right.
I'm with you, Brian.
Exactly. The last one that I loved, I think there was something in the middle, but the last one I genuinely loved was his whole about skipping in line, and it was set at Disney World.
Okay.
And so, but that's probably in one of his specials, so I won't ruin it. You guys look into it.
I listened back to the last time we were here in February.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and one of the things that that you had mentioned was you were sort of tongue-in-cheek not complaining, but you mentioned about someone had brought to your attention that you didn't make some end-of-the-year list of 2017.
Oh, lists continue to infuriate and fascinate.
Yes. So now you are on a list that I saw a few months ago from Forbes.
Oh, the Forbes list. I know.
Yeah.
Lori Kilmartin was infuriated and happy for me.
Okay.
And not really.
Veteran comics who should have
a Netflix special. And I actually tweeted at the guy who wrote that, and I said, thank you very much. If this works, dinner's on me.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that's how it works.
Okay.
But it was me and Will Anderson, and
I wrote them down here in case
yeah.
you don't know off the top of your head.
I don't know off the top.
Christopher Titus.
Oh, Chris Titus, yeah.
Maybe somebody people have heard of.
Sure, he had a sitcom for 3 seasons.
Yeah. Some former No Laugh Track guests and Acme favorites, Greg Behrens.
Oh, Greg Behrendt. You got to love the Greg Behenderment. That's a very old joke of his about his name.
Okay.
And it's a delight.
I have to admit, I'm not familiar with this person, Laura House.
Oh, Laura House. She had a TV show on MTV called Austin Story. She was a Texas comic.
A while ago.
Yeah, MTV. Yeah, a long time, maybe late 90s.
Yeah.
And she's been doing a lot of, she did sitcom writing for about 10 years. And then now I think she still writes, but she also does a lot more stand-up again.
Yeah.
And her stand-up she's a murderer, man. She's a powerhouse on stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Will Anderson, who's been on this podcast several times, as you mentioned, and then you, Jackie Kashian.
Me, Jackie Kashian.
Did you have any idea that was coming?
I did not.
No.
But I do have myself on Google Alert because I am a monster. No, because I'm in a business. It's a business decision to have yourself on Google Alert.
So that's how you found out, or did someone
That is how I found out.
It is?
Yeah. And then my sister sent it to me because she also has me on Google Alert.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah. Super fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always fun to find someone who's a fan of yours that you didn't know who has some sort of power like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was, who the hell was just telling me that they were at a party? I think it was. It's not this, but it would be like if I were at a party and Tom Hanks's wife came up to me out of the blue and just said, "We went down a YouTube rabbit hole, and you're great." It was something like that.
Yeah.
Where it. Well, who the hell was it? It's a great story. It doesn't have any of the right names. Can't even remember the comic who told me.
Oh, it's going to come to you.
It's going to come to me.
It's going to come to you.
I know.
It's going to come to you. What else did I want to talk to you about? Oh, another thing that we talked about briefly last time was that you had been at like a fundraiser or something with Mark Hamill, and you got to meet him. You told that story.
Yes.
Now, I have something. Nothing's changed with my admiration for Mark Hamill, except for that maybe it's grown because of how cool he is with people on social media.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to bring up about that. I think, like he'll retweet people and reply to people daily. Just regular people that have like 102 followers, and he'll reply to them.
Right. They don't have to be verified. He doesn't just check his verified replies.
There's a good way to put it.
And he checks all of his replies, which must be thousands, right? Because he's freaking Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
So he's scrolling through, seeing probably banana heads who are like, "You were a whiner," and that was the character. Because I don't know if you saw him as the Joker, not a whiner.
No. So I think it's awesome that he does that. I almost think now he's being too generous with fans, and because when I first saw he was doing that, I'm like, I got him. It was maybe earlier this year. And I'm like, I have a birthday coming up. Wouldn't that be awesome? And I'm seeing people like the former mayor of Minneapolis, Betsy Hodges, like she's built some sort of like online relationship with him.
Okay.
And she's like, will write like, I'm going to print this out. Like the first one, she's like, I can't believe your reply. I'm going to print it out and put it up on my wall. And then I thought, I'd like to do that too. Well, no. No, I'm not as special.
Oh, interesting. The value has gone down because he's actually a human being. Yeah, when I met him, that is not a great picture. I got a picture with him, and it is a great picture of me, but I had to keep it because it's a picture of him with me. Yeah. And I do sometimes look like that. So there's nothing to be done. And but we were both backstage, and I was so embarrassed to ask him. He, not embarrassed at all, just like, oh, of course. Yeah, that's what people do. Yeah. They asked to have pictures with me. And I have a thing I do. I put people, in a bit of a headlock, and then we do it. There was no Star Wars movie this December. Are you okay with that? I am okay with that. No. I saw Solo. It should have been called Lando. Yeah. Because I loved Lando. Uh-huh. And Solo was okay. Yeah. I didn't mind the movie. It was good. It was, I'm reading a lot of, I'm reading 2 titles, I think, in Star Wars. Am I? I think I'm reading the Lando comic, which has been sporadic, but I'm reading a new character that they created. Who did create this? It's called Dr. Aphra. Okay. And it's about, she's essentially Indiana Jones, but more Belloc. Like, she's not the good guy. She's the bad guy. She's
Belloc.
yeah.
Wow.
She's the archaeologist who is looking to find stuff to sell.
Yeah.
And she loves Jedi stuff, and so she has crossed paths with Darth Vader a couple of times, and she's just a mess of a person. And there's the background, the other character. It's so incredibly well written. Dr. Aphra, the first, I think, 3 volumes are out, and the new writer is great, but the first writer was great. And so there's trade novel. I would get the trade graphic novels of Dr. Aphra. I would recommend that highest. It's that, and I'm just started reading, as long as we're talking comic books, and I guess we are now.
Yeah, we are.
Chelsea Kane is writing something called Man-Eaters, and it's about panthers that are killing people. But it's sort of a weird Handmaid's Tale kind of dystopian future thing, right? And it's women turn into panthers, and they maul, and they're called man-eaters because they're all girls who turn into panthers. Right. They're girl humans who it's some sort of weird mutation, and so, but Chelsea Kane is a super dark. She was on the Dork Forest one time talking about D&D. Okay. But she is from Portland, Oregon. She writes murder books, like thrillers or homicide thrillers. I haven't read a lot of homicide thrillers in my life, so I don't know what the genre is called. Maybe homicide thrillers. Sure. Anyway, but she wrote Mockingbird for a short amount of time, the Marvel character Mockingbird, and ended up getting a bunch of weird trolls on the internet, and didn't know how to handle them initially because it's a learned skill to deal with hecklers. Sure. And so Liz Winstead, who is from Minnesota, and she created the Daily Show. I did stand up with her this summer, and we were talking about some of these women in other businesses who are online, like tech women, or who knows what other people are online. Everyone's online, right? But they get shit from dudes who are bored. Some of them are 14, some of them are 60, and they're just like, you should eat a bullet and whatever. And so they don't know how to deal with it. And so Liz is like, we should have a seminar for non-comic women how to deal with the trolls, with trolls online. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow, that would be. Everyone would love that. Because, the way I deal with them is I think of my Twitter feed and my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, and even my work Facebook page, as my comedy club. And so if someone is acting up, I kick them out. Yeah. I don't have, and people are like, well, if you block them, they get some satisfaction from that. And I was like, me too. We both get, I don't have a problem. If they're happy, I'm happy. I'm not going to talk to them. That would make them even happier.
I like it too, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Good for them.
I love that. How do I get a copy of the comic book that you helped write?
Oh, my God. I wrote a comic book.
How do I get one? For real, how do I get one? For real,
you go to the comic book store. It's called Comics.
They're in stores now?
Yeah, they're in stores right now. It was they kickstarted it because here's the scoop. I got asked to do, it was a stand-up comics, writing comics anthology. Yeah. And offhand, because I just signed 600 of them before I came here. I signed them on Monday. Because... Awesome. The Kickstarter was
that was one of the bonuses.
One of the bonuses, yeah.
Sure.
So several different people wrote 8-page stories, and it could be about anything. And so I just pulled a story out of my act. There's one of the story I did on Two Dope Queens on HBO. Anyway, so I pulled it out of my act. I turned it into a comic book script with help. I now know how to sort of write a comic book script because of that guy, the editor. From the comic book company is Starburns. And Starburns is owned by Dan Harmon of Community fame, and also from Milwaukee. Went to my grade school, weirdly enough, younger than I am, also very weird, more successful. And I don't know. The thing I won't say about him. There we go. So, but so the comic book is like Patton Oswalt wrote one, Sarah Bonacasa wrote one, and I wrote one, and then two other people wrote them. Can't remember their names because the copies that I signed were just the ones that Sarah and Patton had signed. So I was like, I know for sure they also had them in there. And the woman who did the art for it was so amazing. She put like Laurie Kilmartin's book, all these Easter eggs.
Yeah,
like Laurie's book. The name of my husband's video game company is on a bumper sticker on his laptop.
So cool.
I sent her.
So I haven't seen the whole thing. I just saw a little.
Oh, it was like frames?
Frame of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone had taken a picture and posted it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like there's a
little tiny me.
Yeah.
Wearing my Meat Shield T-shirt, and she did such awesome background. It was just she was great, and it was really fun to do, and I would like to do it again.
Of course.
Yeah. It doesn't pay very well. So,
not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I did have a comic book guy on the Dork Forest that he makes a living. His name's Mark Wade. Do you know Mark Wade?
No.
He has written, I believe, everything.
Okay.
And his dorkdom on the Dork Forest was Superman. He freaking loved Superman. Mm-hmm. And I love Superman. And we had a really great conversation about it. But I'm currently reading I believe his Daredevil and his Doctor Strange. And Marvel was like, what haven't you written? And so he had to like go deep into the long boxes and find characters that he had never read. So written.
So that's in store. So I can go to a comic book store now and get
you should be able to go to the comic book store and get it.
Okay. Well, I wish I would have bought one before I came here. How would I have had you sign it?
Right. I wonder if you know what? I may go to the comic books. Big Brain, I think it's called, on Washington.
Washington, yeah.
That's the close one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I might go there and see if they've got it.
Yeah.
And
just stand next to it.
Just stand next to it. I signed 20 at my local comic book store. They were like, "Would you sign it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Attainable goal, me and Mark Hamill. And
I think that's so awesome.
It was. I was incredibly flattered that they asked.
It's like the Sklar brothers were here earlier this year, had them on, and I was so amazed. Like you with this, they have they were on a baseball card.
Like a real
legit, Topps in packs.
In a pack?
Yes. They've done a series.
Did their minds get blown?
Yeah. It's those guys, and there's a few other comedians that were put on some baseball cards as well.
That's nuts.
Yeah, awesome. So
all that's left is for me to be put on a Magic card.
Magic card.
Magic the Gathering.
Right.
How great would that be?
I'm still enjoying your hotel art series. By the way,
are you enjoying that? Did
you
see that I just put some compilations together?
I didn't watch those, but I saw that.
And you saw that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
You like to see them in action. I didn't do one for this week because I've been in that hotel so many times. It's always the same art. I love it. What they are is they're pictures of Minneapolis in the early 20th century.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're gorgeous. And I genuinely love that hotel. When I was here with Brian, we stayed in a very beautiful hotel, probably 10 blocks from here.
Yeah.
And it was also very nice. But there's something soothing. I am very much the accidental tourist. So I would like things to be the same.
Uh-huh.
And it makes me feel like, because I'm away from home so much, the familiar is almost like being home.
Sure.
So, and that place, the place that Acme puts you up, free breakfast, cup of waffle.
Nice.
Right? Yeah.
Nice. I noticed
Fancy Pants Ritz Carlton. They would like $26 for a burger.
Right. Screw you, Ritz.
I don't
Ritz
blame
about
them.
This. And I also have noticed that you point out when there is a tub in addition to the shower.
I only bathe. And I just found out Zach Galifianakis does not also. He also only bathes.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
It came up recently at a gathering of my family that everybody thought it was weird how much I enjoy taking a bath.
It's nice. You slow down.
Uh-huh.
You give yourself 15 to 30 minutes.
Uh-huh.
To just do nothing.
Uh-huh.
And you soak in a tub.
I love it. The temperature.
All
I
of
like
it.
being in water.
I like the hotter the better.
Yeah.
The hottest I can stand it.
Yeah.
And it all started when I read a weird Tom Robbins book. Tim Robbins? Jitterbug Perfume. Who wrote the Thumb book? Anyway, it's called Jitterbug Perfume, and it was about. I read it in college, and it was about this guy took baths all the time to to like slow the aging process. And for some reason, when I was 19, I was like, "That's what I'm gonna do." I was I've always been a giant nerd. I mean, the Harriet the Spy made me write a journal.
Okay.
For 10 years. I wrote a diary.
That's adorable.
It's adorable. And then I started doing stand-up, and now I just have notebooks.
Yeah.
And then Illusions, which was the Jonathan Livingston Seagull guy, Richard Bach. When I was 19, I read that, and I believed in the Think system, which is a Music Man reference. But I spent a summer trying to believe that this one car was mine.
Oh.
It did not work, and I did not end up stealing a car. We're all happy to know.
That's good. That's good. That's very good. I'm going to say a phrase here. You tell me what comes to mind. Comedy legend.
Ugh. That's what comes to mind.
That's good enough.
Yuck.
That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
That is your reaction, and that's perfect. The reason I bring this up, this might be, I might come across as being a dick for saying this. I'm going to say it anyway. There's a radio commercial on right now in the Twin Cities. There's a comedian that's going to be coming to town performing at one of the casinos. And
right.
In this ad, they refer to him as a comedy legend. And every time I'm like, what? What does that mean? What does that mean then? If you're saying that, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, comedy itself is so incredibly subjective. So when you say someone's a comedian, everyone's like, are they? And you're like, yes, if you say you're a comedian, let's say you're speaking about Bill Engvall, or if you're speaking about a guy who juggles and also makes jokes, if that person thinks that they are a comic, they're a comic.
Okay.
Like, do you remember when it just happened with Mike Birbiglia and Hannah Gadsby, the Australian Nanette.
Mm-hmm.
And with Mike and with Hannah, they were both like, but is it stand-up? Because it was sort of very personal stories and rants and all these different things. And I'm like, well, did they say it was stand-up? That's the whole prerequisite.
Sure.
You may not like it, but it's stand-up.
Yeah.
I mean, John Lovitz once asked Maria, and he didn't mean it in a mean way. It was just a weird way where he walked up to her and he said, do you consider what you're doing stand-up comedy? And Maria said, we're in a comedy club. And left it at that. But I think, to some extent, the reason he asked is because sometimes people ask because they want permission to do something weird or something unique.
Oh, yeah.
And they're thinking about Seinfeld and his particular style of stand-up, and they're like, well, is that stand-up comedy? I don't know.
Yeah.
Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, all of these gentlemen, they were all considered stand-up comedy, and they were all very different, you know?
Yeah.
Andy Kaufman, ugh. The guys, Sarah Silverman did the greatest joke about Andy Kaufman the other day. It's very long. It's very wonderful. The only thing I remember was, so she was like, he's famous for going into the improv, the famous Hollywood improv, and reading The Great Gatsby from start to finish one night. And every day I wake up and I thank God I wasn't there. And you're like, yeah, that sounds like a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what works for some and not for others. My daughters are, of course, into the stars. To them are people that are famous on YouTube. Right,
YouTube stars.
There's one we went out to. I was super dad. I tried to be super dad, and I took them out to the Mall of America a couple months ago to go see one of these YouTube stars that was having an appearance at a brand new makeup store.
Okay.
Yeah. We got not very close enough to see a few glimpses of this guy, because there were thousands of young girls there.
Right, because every 13-year-old in the world is watching YouTube.
Every one of them.
Instead of television.
Yeah.
For 7 hours a day.
Yeah, at least. And they were all there that day. That guy who we went to go see that day just was on my Twitter feed this week because some of his fans showed up outside his house. Yeah.
And he was like, guys.
Yeah. Like, hey, I love you, but hey, sisters, as this guy would have said.
Yeah.
Don't show up at my house anymore.
Right. No pop-ins.
Scary.
Well, yeah, it's... I think everyone kind of gets it. And it's weird because if they're 13, it meant that their parents drove them.
Probably, right?
Yeah, right? Yeah. And you're like, nope. How would you like it if someone showed up at your house? You wouldn't.
No,
so take that into account.
I want to know what you think about this. So Penny Marshall, of course, passed away.
Super
this
sad.
week,
I
right?
know, and 75, not a career cut tragically short, but shorter every day. That's younger every moment. But she was such a big fucking deal in my life because I'm from Milwaukee.
I was just I had to ask because of that connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Penny Marshall was the best. And just her and her crazy boo-boo kitty and Vodeo-do-do and all the things. And then she directed stuff and it was awesome.
So, I'm not going to give away who this is right away, but another famous, someone who's very famous.
Yes.
Penny Marshall.
Too many people.
So, Penny Marshall passes away this week. This person tweets a little memorial to his friend Penny, and it says, a great comedian, a terrific director, and dear friend. What I want your opinion on is great comedian is COMEDIENNE, comedian. Do you give a shit about that? Does that bother you a little bit?
It always does. It always does because it feels like they do it with the Marvelous Miss Maisel. Like they call her a comedian, and I haven't seen it yet.
Right,
but I know some friends who've written on it, and I'm told that it's a very accurate depiction of what it's like to be a stand-up comedy in the 80s and 90s, where everyone's dressed like it's the 50s and 60s. And that's fine. Because, I guess, like, for example, she's pretty dirty.
Yeah.
And nobody was allowed. You just weren't allowed to be that blue.
Not back then.
And Phyllis Diller was as blue as she got, and she wasn't that blue.
Okay.
So, people always talk about how dirty Red Fox was, and I was listening to it, and I was like, still not as dirty as some of the open micers I see today. And just because it's easier to talk about all these things. The line is moved, the goalposts or whatever. And but comedian is, it's essentially a diminutive.
That's what I'm like. Yeah, when a guy says it, does that mean that it's like, okay, I look at guys as comedians, they're comics, and then the women do it, and they're the
comedians. I prefer comediette.
They're the third version,
right?
By that I mean 1/3 version.
There's an amazing article in Time Out this week by this comic Becky. Anyway, she's a New York comic, so I don't know her very well. And but I think I've met her. But the interview was amazing, and she was talking about how women comics can be. There's so many more now that there's enough to put up shows at other venues besides comedy clubs, because comedy clubs often don't support women comics. And but she had this was amazing line about how, you're like, they think of us as guests in a boys' club, and it's just a reveal of, it's like, we're never going to be in with them, so we have to do our own thing because we're not actually part of. They're like, no, you can come and play, but only a couple of you, and you're not really accepted, and we're going to still not make it safe for you to hang out, and we're still going to allow this genius factor, and it's going to be just dumb, and I was raised comedically on the genius factor, right? I've said it hundreds of times. Well, he's an asshole, but he's really funny. And because you tolerate so much more from people that are charming, that are good looking, that are funny, that are smart. You're like, but if your smarts ever fail, you're screwed. Yeah. If your hilarity ever fails, you're screwed. Because underneath that, how funny a comic you are is a terrible person. And so if your comedy ever isn't that great, like you look at like people fucking love Michael Moore. I do not. I find him exhausting. And so I'm sure his heart's in the right place, but he seems just kind of like there's too much ego there for me to be excited about watching one of his movies. So if he ever did one of those, like he has a new one out, I think, where he's some sort of 9/11 truther or something. Yeah, there's some sort of beeswax. I'm like, tinfoil hat, man, because even if it's true, That's why I watch a lot of local news. Because I literally cannot. I like my news like Pioneer Days, 3 weeks late with a lot of analysis. Like way too late for me to have done anything about it. Because what I want to do is something about the thing in front of me.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're pushing around a kid in front of me, I want to say, hey, knock that off. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to be brave enough or smart enough or involved enough at the local level to make a difference. Mm-hmm. Because if you tell me about the horrible thing that's happening in Yemen, 3 weeks later, I can still give them $100. Mm-hmm. And it's going to do what it's going to do, and it can't hurt, but I cannot go to Yemen.
Yeah.
And hand somebody a sandwich. Uh-huh. And I wish I could, and I wish my government would or do something, right?
Right.
But I literally, and I will vote in the long run, because that's what I'm doing a joke about how I've always been relatively insufferable. Because I've always been like this bleeding heart liberal. Uh-huh. And so there's no, and it was always one time it was very funny because my dad was like, you ever get in any trouble with your politics? My dad, he's like, you ever get any guff from anybody about your politics off stage? And I was like, Dad, have you looked at me? Like everyone looks at me and they're like, well, what's she going to do? Vote? I'm terrified. And, nobody's ever been intimidated by my bleeding heart liberalism.
I love
so
it.
Whatever.
Are you, for even if there's just one person that's curious of who referred to Penny as a comedian?
Oh, yeah.
And maybe this changes your opinion at all. I don't know. Billy Crystal.
Nope. It doesn't change my opinion. It just makes me go, Billy, if you could not act like a 70-year-old man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Because the thing is you weren't always 70. And we were hoping.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
And he was 25 in the 70s. So it's not like he didn't know that women don't want to be called babes or whatever. God, don't be a weirdo. Weirdo.
Hey, I'm looking over
because I like Billy Crystal, but he hasn't done stand-up in 35 years.
It's part of I want to go back. I don't want to skip this. It's part of the Kickstarter for the comic book.
Yeah.
Were they making Funko Pop dolls of you guys?
They were trying, and then they found out that they can't.
Whoa, why not?
So it was going to be this amazing perk. And then I was like, well, can people pick which, do they want me made into a Funko Pop? And they were like, let me check. And then they came back and said, oh, I think we got to take that off because we can't make anybody into them.
Oh, no.
Because of rights or something. I don't know what happened. So it all fell apart. But who wouldn't want them, right? An action figure?
It'd be awesome.
It would be awesome.
So awesome.
Mm-hmm. There's a new action figure line out. Well, it's not new, and it's, I think, sold out from Disney. Disney owns ABC and Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
And all Star Wars and all the things, right?
Muppets.
Disney owns everything. Mm-hmm. So they had these action figures for Marvel, and they're called Toy Box action figures. And the articulation you could pose them really good, and they were super sturdy. Uh-huh. And I picked up a Doctor Strange and a Black Widow, and I made them into Joseph and Mary in my nativity scene. Very nice. And I wanted a Black Panther, but of course the Black Panther is going to be the most popular, right?
Yeah.
And $73 on eBay. I saw it.
Yikes.
Yeah, guess who won't be getting one? I was like, no.
Wait, what's the 73 marked up from what? Like 20?
11.
11?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were when I got them, they were on sale. It was the they might have been 14 initially, but they were on sale because of Black Friday.
Oh, okay.
So they were $10 each when I got them.
I just recently added to my collection of fun things like that. I got the Tom Servo and Crow T Robot Funko Pop.
Oh, nice.
Figures. Yeah, from Mystery Science.
Yeah, tonight Mary Jo Peel's going to do a guest set.
What?
Here. Yeah. Yeah, from original.
Yeah,
Mystery Science Theater.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Holy shit!
Yeah, she's been doing stand-up again, and she's so freaking funny. I'm really looking forward to it. I didn't touch base with her again though today, so I should probably get on that.
No kidding.
Yeah, and because she asked me months ago if she could do it, and I was like, "You could do one every show.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can do whatever the hell you want, Mary Jo Pehl."
I saw she was on my TV last night because I watched the first half an hour of the Riff Tracks Presents Mystery Science reunion, blah blah blah, from
nice.
from the State Theater a couple years ago.
Yeah,
and the reason that started on my Amazon is because before that, in my queue is for years, I just recently re-upped my Amazon Prime. I tried to go without it for a while.
Yeah.
After they bumped up the price $20, I was like, "Fuck you, I'm not paying."
Well, it's weird because they've never asked me if I want to. I think I have it on automatic.
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
I turned that off and held out for a while. Anyway, so my wife and I watched a documentary last night, and I wonder if you've seen this. It ended, and then it started right into the Mystery Science thing.
I saw the Mr. Rogers documentary.
Oh,
Anyway,
me
go
too.
ahead. Yeah.
That's good. I didn't cry, though, because so many people told me they cried. I think I was ready to, and then
Yeah,
I
me
didn't.
too. Yeah.
But I still
and I
liked
saw
it.
it on the back of a chair at a Delta flight.
Oh, yeah.
So
I was on my couch at home. Nobody, just my wife. I could have cried.
You could have
comfortable.
cried.
Didn't
cry?
Didn't.
But how great was that story about the toddler? Anyway, go ahead.
It's so good. I recommend everybody see that. The documentary my wife and I watched last night is several years old now, probably 5, 6 years old. Women Aren't Funny.
Bonnie McFarlane?
Yes.
Yeah. How was it?
Have you watched it ever?
No, because I'm not in it, and I have rage. Not a lot. But
Maria's in it briefly.
Maria's
you know.
in it briefly. Yeah, everybody's in it.
Yeah.
But I heard it was good. Was it fascinating? Oh, no.
It had
was not
potential.
Oh, okay.
I don't really...
Potential to be compelling, but it didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't take.
There were some laughs.
Okay.
I liked the idea behind it. I liked that a woman was like, "Okay, I'm going to go do this thing and hold a mirror up to everybody and show you what idiots you are for saying women aren't funny."
Right.
I thought that was what she was trying to do, and it kind of was. But then other parts of it, they were. I wish you'd seen it.
Right.
Because they're getting
like-
comments from comedians that were saying things, I think, sarcastically, but it wasn't consistent. Does that make sense?
That makes enormous amount of sense because the consistency would have that would have had to have been imperative.
It wasn't. Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, it's always hard to do that sort of ironic sexism, or ironic racism, even from your own race or your own sex, because you're just, the consistency is imperative.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Lori and I do a comic of the week, and Lori announces that it's a woman every week, and she doesn't announce that it's a woman every week, but I mean, she talks about how it's always going to be a woman.
Yeah.
And I'm like, or it could just always be a comic that happens to be a woman, and we're just not ever going to pick a dude.
Yeah.
And because it's and we've done this thing. She just says this. She just pointed this out. She's like, we've done that thing that we hate, which is we've created a list that some people aren't on.
Yeah.
And so we get, like, I got an email from a friend of mine that I've known for 30 years, and she's like, this is going to sound ridiculous, but why have I never been a comic of the week? And I said, haven't you already been a comic of the week? Because there's 150 of them. Because we have 150 episodes or whatever. And I was like, well, obviously we'll correct that. And then Lori said that she got a bunch of emails. And then we talked about it on the show, and I'm like, just email me. And I will actually put a list up, and we will start working down it, because like what we were trying to do was to try to give it as a resource for bookers, because that's what it's turned into, where if you look at the list of names, you're like, oh, and many of them are headliners, like who could. And a lot, then plenty of them are features, and plenty of them would be MCs, but you could book full shows for 100 weeks with these people, and they'd be good shows, and there'd probably be some straight white guy who was like, why is my perspective not represented? And
does Maria still have the list on her site?
I think so.
Because that, of course, is included in that Women Aren't Funny, is Bonnie sees that her name isn't on it, and then she confronts Maria.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure Maria course corrected that immediately.
Not immediately, from what they show in the movie.
Oh, really?
No, it takes... She finds her a second time, and it's still not on there. And then by the end... Spoiler alert. Happy
Spoiler
ending.
alert.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
She's on the list.
Yes.
Yes. Well, we could put a bow on this thing. I know you usually bring, or always, I'm going to say always bring merch for your fans.
And boy, did I bring it this time.
You did.
Because it's the week before Christmas. And so I literally brought the whole store. And I'm going to run out of stuff, and then you're going to have to order it online.
Okay.
And then you're not going to get it by Christmas unless you celebrate Armenian Christmas, which is January 6th. I brought Dork Forest T-shirts, both the Ranger, which is the black one, and the green logo one.
Oh, yeah.
And then I brought Spooky Reading Girl T-shirts, which is a joke from 2 albums ago that I have to do it if I want to sell the merch, which is a classic conundrum of stand-up comics. And it
Jackie,
is
just get her done, all right?
well, I am the Larry the Cable Guy of stand-up comedy. We know that. But I just added enamel pins. People were like, "We love enamel pins," and I was like, really? So I made enamel pins.
Okay.
People do love enamel pins. But let me tell you something about an enamel pin. It is the Super Bowl. It's like when you're a kid and you buy a Super Bowl. You play with it until you lose it.
Yeah.
That's what an enamel pin is.
Oh.
You put it on your jacket until it falls off somewhere.
Oh.
And then you have had an enamel pin for a week, a month, 3 years, however long it lasts. But it is the Super Bowl of adulthood.
But you have a replacement. You'll sell them.
Yeah, you might as well buy 2, you guys, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I have that, the Spooky Reading Girl T-shirt and the enamel pin. I brought 3 of my CDs and my DVD.
Oh, my.
And I also brought the new shirt and the new enamel pin, which are the Meat Shield T-shirt and pin. And the Meat Shield T-shirt and pin, those go to charity. And I've been selling them for 2 years now, or a year and a half, and I've made $3,000 because it's everything above cost, right?
Okay.
So they cost anywhere between $9.50 to $11 a piece, the T-shirts, because they're union made. All the shirts are union made, so they're kind of expensive, but they last a long time, and they're very nice.
Nice.
So and they run big because they're made by Americans. So but that money I've been able to donate $3,000, and so the last money I just sent was to the Southern Law Poverty Center, which might be the correct order there. The previous one was the ACLU in Iowa, and it was 1,000 to SPLC, whatever it is, and then 1,000 to the ACLU in Iowa, and 1,000 to Black Lives Matter in Sacramento.
Wow!
And so I'm like $200 towards the next one, which will be to send to that RACES, the immigrant advocacy. There's an immigrant advocacy foundation or donation nonprofit in San Antonio, Texas. And what they do is they, like little kids are going into courts without lawyers. That kid's 6. He doesn't know what his rights are. It turned out he's 6. Yeah. And pardon me while I burst into tears. So that's what that next grand will go to.
Yeah.
So, but, I was going to tell you, my feature, who's featuring this week, is Brandy Posey.
Okay.
And Brandy Posey has been doing stand-up a long time. She headlines a lot of the smaller clubs, and she does her own sort of venue. She does like Kanane and James Adomian and Sean Patton. She does what those guys do.
Okay.
She goes
I've been listening to when you mentioned her on your podcast.
Yeah.
Recently.
Oh, right. Her dorkdom was ska. Ska music. And she has her album out, and she's selling it as well. And her album is on cassette.
What?
She's like, I am a hipster monster, or whatever she says. I forget what she says. But get this. So it's beautiful in this J box and this cassette.
Yeah.
But it also comes with a download card.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because nobody has a cassette player except my dad.
Yeah.
Right?
Boy, I'm like, do I wear? Nope. That
Where
one's
would you-
broken. We threw that one away. I gave that to the kids.
My dad drives a 99 Lincoln Town car, so it's got a tape deck in it.
Nice.
Yeah.
What tapes do you think he's driving around with?
I have no idea. I've been literally trying to get him to do something.
Oh.
And but he is like, it's fine. I just listen to the news. It'll be fine.
And you're going to Wisconsin for Christmas?
Right. We're going to go on a sleigh ride in Jellystone Park outside of Milwaukee. And on Christmas Day, which made me laugh so hard because Christmas Day, 7 p.m., one ticket. The sleigh seats like 10 people, right? So it's like a big sleigh ride, a big sleigh. And if there's no snow, I'm sure it'll be a hayride. But what do you think a sleigh ride should cost for one ticket for one person on Christmas night?
Oh, I don't know.
What would you charge for a seat?
Well, I would probably charge a lot because it's Christmas.
Because it's Christmas, and even so it isn't Christmas, and it's Milwaukee. What do you think it's going to cost?
Oh, $3?
Oh, that actually, I'm sure they would throw down insulted. If it were anywhere else but Wisconsin, I would have said $35 a ticket.
Yeah, I was going to say 25.
Yeah, so Milwaukee, I would say 20. Nope, $12.
Wow. Yeah.
Get this, you can go VIP, which involves a free cup of cocoa and a glow stick for $14.
What?
Guess who went VIP? This one right here.
Good
I have
call.
$2.
Good call.
And so we're going to go on a sleigh ride. Andy's flying into Milwaukee, and we're going to stay at the Pfister Hotel,
The Pfister.
which is an old-timey hotel that has Victorian art and stuff.
Haunted, right?
And probably haunted. And certainly, but I understand bathtubs. So very exciting.
Get ready for that Instagram video.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jackie.
Oh, thank you.
People come out, and I don't know which shows still have tickets available, but check the website and come here to Acme and see you.
Go to JackieCation.com, and you'll love Brandy Posey, too.
Perfect. Thank you.